Welcome to Garage Gym Athlete Cooldowns. These episodes are short, actionable podcasts pulled from previous interviews and content we've been publishing for the last several years. So go for a walk, hop on the rower, or clip into the bike for this cooldown episode.
Yeah, well, it's commonly asked when somebody does what I do, asks, how'd you get into it? And I was an athlete in my past and was very interested in understanding how to make my body work at an optimum level. Some of that was just purely related to performance on the court or the field, and other aspects of that was healing from injuries that took place on the court or the field. So how do I get back to where I was and then go beyond that? And that mindset had been facilitated or fostered, I think, early on through sports. Then I went into my graduate program. Undergrad, did all sorts of stuff related to health sciences and didn't really know what I wanted to get into, but I gravitated towards exercise physiology for my master's degree. And then when I left there, I ended up working for Dr. Dean Ornish at the Preventative Medicine Research Institute in Sausalito, California. Now, he's well known as a diet doctor who recommends very, very low-fat diets for people with cardiovascular disease and other accompanying lifestyle factors. He was doing another trial that was looking at a very similar approach, but to people that have early prostate cancer, so men that have early prostate cancer. And that was really an awesome experience because 180 patients would come once a week with their spouses if they had one, and they'd have a 7-hour intervention where they would cook food, they would sit down and talk with an exercise physiologist, sit down and talk with a relationship counselor. And we were really trying to look at all different aspects of how they were living to affect the internal hormonal milieu that could be affecting, of course, the progression of the cancer. And that approach, whether separated from the paradigm. So if you have a strong opinion about low fat, ignore that. But think about how that work was trying to look at all these different aspects of health in order to see how we could optimize outcomes for these patients. And I loved that work, and it made a very strong impression on me. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But from there, I worked at a bioinformatics company. We were sequencing the human genome, and that was some very gratifying work. The human genome had not been sequenced yet, so it was a fun race that we were doing with the NCBI, the government, and also Craig Ventnor's Celera. And then from there, I went to work in the pharmaceutical industry, and that's where my love for sleep happened. I knew nothing about sleep ahead of that, but we had a drug, GHB, gamma hydroxybutyrate, which has a very colorful history to it. A lot of people in the bodybuilding circles know about it. But this was now being looked at for the treatment of narcolepsy. And narcolepsy, most people know, is a condition that makes people very sleepy. They also have other symptoms like hypnagogic hallucinations, which means they are in this basically transition state between sleep and wake that can take place at bedtime and when waking up. Most notably, they also have something called cataplexy, which is a loss of muscle tone in response to emotion. And so this drug, GHB, has a very unique effect, both on promoting more naturalistic sleep, seemingly, and then also for very robust wake-inducing effects the next day. And that was really rewarding. So I started the medical affairs department at the company, and I ran a research grant program. And so at one point, we had funded 30 different clinical trials or research projects that were looking at GHB for things like longevity, essential tremor, fibromyalgia, Alzheimer's disease. It was a really cool time because I get to interact with people that are top of their field in those different disciplines, and I had to know a lot about GHB and sleep, and so it was fun. It was a really fun job. And then I left there, and harkening back to my work with Ornish, I wanted to create some way to scale ideas that I was exposed to there, which is how do you create this multifactorial lifestyle program that helps people with what I call health performance. So all the things that we need to perform at so that our health performs well so that we can perform well in our lives. And this is different than the aspect of health that is sickness. And I think we've been born into a world where so many of us outsource our health as though it's the responsibility of our doctors, when that's never really been true. It just seemed true because infectious disease modifying agents like vaccines and antibiotics have successfully been able to address the number one mortality causing factors in our world, which are infections. And so over the course of 100 years, starting from 1910, we now live 70% longer, average age of 47 in 1910 to 78 in 2016, but we also have gotten sicker. So now we have the appearance of chronic disease earlier and earlier in life. And my bias and my opinion is that the more that we live askew to what natural factors are promoted by the modern lifestyle and highly powered technologies in many different ways, it changes the way that we live. It changes our exposures, our lifestyle, and that then predictably will lead to disease earlier. So we need to figure out a way to counteract that. It's not our doctor's responsibility. It's our own. So then how do we become really expert at taking care of our own health? That's what I do. That's what I do with Human OS. And I think it is sort of the perfect job for me in terms of kind of hitting on all the things that I really love. So that's me.
Thanks for listening to today's Cool Down. If for some ridiculous reason you are not subscribed to Garage Gym Athlete programming, fix that problem right now. Go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial, and get started with us today. Thanks for listening.